our next phase of activities. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the press. Let me begin by recognizing the presence of the eminent women of the Women's Situation Room who are hosting the press this noon. In the wake of the official announcement by the National Elections Commission to conduct the presidential runoff election on the 14th of November 2023, we have in the room, starting on your far left, Her Excellency Olubanki King Akoreli, former Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Liberia, former Minister of Commerce and Industry of the Republic of Liberia, over 20 years in the UN system, and the chair of the board of the Angie Brooks International Center for Women's Empowerment, Leadership Development, International Peace and Security. Next to her, we have Honorable Ophelia Satoma, former mayor of the city of Monrovia, member of the ECOWAS panel of the wives, and an entrepreneur extraordinaire, number one entrepreneur, female entrepreneur in the Republic of Liberia. Next to her, we have Councillor Councillor Felicia Coleman, the co-chair of the Law Reform Commission. Yeah, the co-chair of the Law Reform Commission, and who has an extraordinary background in sexual and gender-based violence, especially in our courts that have been established. And of course, she's one of the renowned jurists in the Republic of Liberia. She's also a former Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of the Republic of Liberia. On my right, you have Councillor Johnson Allison, and she is the former Chief Justice of the Republic of Liberia, former Minister of Justice of the Republic of Liberia, former Minister of Commerce and Industry of the Republic of Liberia, and former Chair of NEC. And we think that's very important as we go towards election. She has the most unique CV when it comes to election management bodies in the world. Next to her is Ma Koko Howard, and she is the president of the Rural Women of Montserrado County. She's a member of the Rural Women Board of the Republic of Liberia, and a mover and shaker when it comes to rural women. So these are the women, the eminent women in the room, and your humble servant. I am Councillor Yvette Chassin-Wura. I'm the initiator of the Women's Situation Room and the establishment coordinator of the Angie Brooks International Center for Women's Empowerment, Leadership Development, International Peace and Security, and I'm co-chair of FemWise of the 15 countries of ECOWAS. So we are pleased to bring to your attention to prioritize findings of the WSR, which are crucial to the peace and security of our beloved country. The WSR is a non-partisan peace-building mechanism that mobilizes, trains, and empowers women in collaboration with the youth to take ownership of peace processes in their communities before, during, and after elections. This is important as the interest of the women and youth is not only in observation, but to go the extra mile to avoid and mitigate electoral violence. The WSR is always neutral and non-partisan. At the highest level, it has been endorsed by the African Union and the United Nations Security Council as a best practice to be replicated. Previously released joint statements by the Women's Situation Room and the Liberian Council of Churches detail the position of the WSR findings on the general political environment, election day activities, and post-election findings, which included a condemnation of illegal declarations of results and premature celebrations by political parties and supporters. The electorates reported alleged tracking of voters to register and subsequently to vote, which caused disturbances during the voting. The WSR also monitored the public interest and reactions generated across the country during the collation and official announcement of results. Before the runoff election on the 14th of November, the WSR strongly recommends the NEC to address the issues tabled to its offices, be it the computational errors, testified or others as indicated in our earlier releases to allay any lingering concerns and doubts. Issues to overcome: civic and voters' education. The inadequacy of civic and voter education before the October 10th general elections can be blamed for the staggering 114,639 invalid votes, which represented 5.88% of the total votes. NEC informed Liberians that first-time voters constituted a little over 20% of registered voters, a figure which pointed to the priority of civic and voter education. While the WSR talking bus was deployed to its 7 active counties for such education, NEC, together with other stakeholders, needed to scale up CVE efforts to ensure voters were sufficiently informed. The WSR is calling on NEC and partners to boost CVE ahead of the runoff election in a much more decentralized manner to raise awareness through door-to-door visits, radio talk shows, TV programs, jingles and dialogues with politically marginalized people such as women, youth, and persons with disabilities. The talking bus will once more be deployed by the WSR to our 7 counties to assist in the civic and voter education as we wait for the runoff elections. You will see more details as we go along. Policing campaign activities. The responsibility of peaceful and non-provocative campaign activities lies with the political parties scheduled for the presidential runoff elections. Devout partisans from the Coalition for Democratic Change and the Unity Party listen and follow directions which trickle down to them from their party's leadership as well as the managers of the political campaigns. Given the regretful bloody clashes of some campaign activities, including that of the 8th of October between the CDC and ALCOP, where injuries were sustained and properties were lost, including a damage to one of the WSR vehicles, the WSR is calling on CDC and UP to police their campaign activities. It should not be recorded that this ugly history be repeated during the preparatory activities of the presidential runoff elections because lessons were not learned from the mistakes of the past. The WSR impresses upon CDC and UP to prioritize the peace of the country above all else. NEC preparation for November 14th. The WSR encourages NEC to ensure early preparation, including alternative means to transport the sensitive and non-sensitive materials to the various polling precincts and places. Where the need arises, these materials should be protected against damage and additional costs, especially across our river communities. The NEC temporal staff managing the elections at the various polling precincts and polling places should be incentivized at the time of deployment to keep their focus on the task assigned them. The WSR observers were engaged during the October 10 elections on the lack of stipends, especially those in the rural areas where India had to rely on the generosity of the residents. The WSR notes the conditions of NEC temporal staff deployment should not encourage them to seek relief in this manner as they may be leaning towards compromise. Voting on election day. While the layout of polling precincts and polling places have already been determined from the October 10 elections, consideration should be boosted for voters with disabilities, the elderly, pregnant women, nursing mothers, and other persons who fall under the category of priority voting. The WSR observed priority voting was not entirely observed through our observers, and from the daily situational briefings by our analysts. However, one of the WSR observers was given the permission to assist a blind voter to vote. It also remains unclear if the widely reported Braille ballot papers were available at all the centers, and if visually impaired voters received education on its usage. Another issue was some of the rooms which hosted the voting process did not have proper windows to maximize daylight, so visibility was a challenge to some voters, and ventilation was overtly poor. The WSR call center received calls of voters fainting while waiting in line to cast their vote. The WSR needs NEC to investigate these issues and provide workable solutions to reduce such complaints in the runoff on November 14th. Counting ballot issues. The widely observed issue was the poor lighting at the time of counting the ballots, to the point where the NEC temporal staff had to use flashlights from the mobile devices to do the counting. It is no secret that electricity is not available in every part of our country. It is also no secret that areas with electricity cannot rely on its supply all throughout the day. So given the background that by the time polls officially close at 6 p.m. and by the time that the last voter in line casts the ballot, daytime light will no longer be available. Next should avert the lighting challenges during the October 10 elections by providing more torchlights, rechargeable bulbs, and other forms of lighting to ensure the counting process is unhindered. Tally centers must have generators and enough fuel as backup should there be disruptions to the electricity supply or malfunction of rechargeable bulbs and torchlights. This will avoid the creation and dissemination of fake news on the social media of some persons using blackouts at these centers to manipulate the election results. Abuse of traditional emblems. The WSR vehemently frowned on the abuse of the Liberian traditional emblems for selfish political gains. The orientation of the poorer society in Liberia is a much revered traditional practice and one that has been very well situated as part of our culture. The Liberian tradition defined their meaning and its implication, especially as it relates to the Zoes and the country devil. This practice has no role in making democratic decisions in Liberia during our elections. The WSR finds it unconscionable, appalling, and despicable to witness the extent to which political parties and politicians will go to unleash the intimidation of varying intensity on a significant number of voters by abusing our traditional emblems. The WSR calls on the Ministry of Internal Affairs and the leadership of the National Traditional Council to investigate this matter in Maryland in the just ended October 10 general election, then pronounce and enforce appropriate punishment for the offenders. Ahead of the November 14, a similar position by the above relevant authorities should be put in place to ensure voters participate in the elections in a peaceful manner. Restraint from violence. The WSR observed the October 10 presidential and legislative elections was conducted in a generally peaceful manner. The WSR also observed there were pockets of incidents reported to its call center, and from the deployed 700 observers and 700 peace monitors, where arrests were made, and in the case of Nimba County, 2 ballot boxes were stolen in the process. The WSR encourages the youth to abstain from being manipulated by political parties and politicians to perpetrate violence in the upcoming presidential election runoff. The youth and other voters should maintain their enthusiasm and high participation rate in a peaceful manner. Avoid release of fake results and premature celebrations. The WSR calls on the leadership of CDC and UP to restrain from the temptation of releasing early results outside of NEC that will incite partisans to premature celebrations. By law, NEC has the mandate to declare election results. The lesson from the official announcement of results by NEC following the October 10th showed no political party garnered the required 50% of votes plus one to win a one-round victory, although both UP and CDC claimed victory in this manner. This behavior, if continued in the presidential runoff, can recklessly spark violence among anxious partisans. The WSR calls on the leadership of CDC and UP and their political commentators on radio and social media to exercise maximum restraint and wait for the returning officer of the results of the presidential election runoff, the chairperson of NEC, to perform her duties in a peaceful and credible manner away from unnecessary distractions. Considering the above, the WSR will embark on several activities in its 7 active counties: Montserrado, Bong, Lofa, Nimba, Grand Jida, Grand Bassa, and Grand Kipman to maintain the peace. The WSR will deploy 8 national eminent women mediators, 25 national secretariat staff, 25 county coordinating hub staff, 700 peace monitors, 700 observers, 5 analysts from political, gender, legal, media, and data backgrounds, Joint Security Intervention Desk, NEC Intervention Desk, and a toll-free call center which will operate 24 hours a day. The number for the call center, once again, is 2023. The WSR funding is provided by the United Nations Development Fund, UNDP, which extends to the Peace Building Fund, the European Union, the Swedish government, and Irish Aid. Preparations are underway to deploy the talking bus for civic and voter education, as was done before the October 10th general elections. In specific terms, the talking bus experts will address lingering issues such as: 1. Why go to the polls again only for the presidency? 2. Civic and voter education, the rights and responsibilities under the law. 3. How voters can locate their names on the FRR using their surname to avoid standing in wrong queues for long and delaying the voting process. 4. How to vote on the ballot paper. 5. Address the issue of the invalid votes. 6. Education on priority voting. And 7. How to resolve electoral disputes using magistrate net board of commissioners and the Supreme Court. The WSR Youth Peer-to-Peer Engagement is also scheduled to commence full-time with the at-risk youth. This activity will be crowned with the Motorcyclist Peace Ride and Peace Walk as the youth once again pledge fidelity to peace as was done before the October 10 general elections. Conclusion. The WSR is thankful for the support and confidence its donors, partners, and the public continue to repose in it as a credible, independent, tested, and neutral women-led peace-building mechanism. The WSR wishes to express its deepest condolences to families of our citizens who has lost their lives during the electoral process. We also reiterate our call to the Joint Security to investigate swiftly all incidents of violence during and after October 10 general elections and ensure that those found culpable are duly prosecuted. Lastly, the WSR urges all aggrieved parties of the October 10 general elections to resort to peaceful and lawful avenues and processes to seek redress. The peace is in our hands. Signed, the eminent women of the Women's Situation. Thank you.